Hello everybody, my name is Kat and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things horror. And today we have the first horror film of 2026 and that is Primate. This is a film that's been getting fairly good buzz since doing its festival run. I only saw one trailer for it when I went to go see Silent Night Deadly Night at the theater. The trailer didn't really do much for me, but I was like, it's getting good word of mouth, so hopefully it'll be a good way to start off the new year. It was my birthday yesterday. I spent my birthday dinner going to one of those like fancy theaters where you can order food while you're watching the movie and caught a showing of Primate. So did it live up to the hype? I feel like this is one of those films where, you know, for me it was very like mediocre, but then I go on to like Reddit and I see everyone praising this film, how it was so brutal and so violent. It's one of these films where I see the reactions online and I'm like, did we see the same movie? But the thing is that I know people offline who did get to go see advanced screenings of this, who also really liked it and really praised it and were like, yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I'm not saying that the movie isn't fun. Maybe I just went in with too high expectations of it. I don't know. I actually went into it thinking it was gonna be more horror comedy than it ended up being. So this might be a personal thing on my part, that this might be a movie that's just not for me. And to be fair, this is a film about a animal that gets rabies and goes crazy, and the whole rabies thing isn't my favorite. I just remember being a kid in school during health class and they would show us videos about what would happen if you get rabies. I don't know if this was just a weird small town Vermont thing. Genuinely terrified that I was gonna get rabies at some point as a kid. Same thing with Cujo. I don't like that film either. All of that to say that this might just be a matter of personal taste. And I don't know when people are talking about how hardcore and brutal this movie is, if they're referring to the gore, if they're referring to the kill scenes, or if they're just referring to the general acts of violence that you see throughout the movie. I mean, this is an animal who becomes vicious towards its owners. So you're getting scenes of the animal attacking the humans and then the humans having to fight back. So you're getting scenes of them like punching and hitting the monkey. I don't like watching animals getting hurt in films, even if they are rabid monsters that are trying to kill the human. I much prefer my animal horror films when it's the animals either being the good guys or it's them just like killing awful human beings. But as far as the gore goes, as far as the actual kills go, again, I'm seeing a lot of comments about how brutal the kills are, and I think there is some fun special effects work in here. They kind of do the same gag more than once, but I feel like there was really only like two pretty big kill moments and the rest of it felt pretty standard to what you see in normal horror films, at least for me. I came back home after seeing the movie and watched the season premiere of The Pit, and I was cringing more at some of the special effects and gore in that episode than I was at any of the gore in Primate. I don't feel like the gore here is on the level of like a Terrifier film, for example, or even a Saw movie. In terms of having consistent, really brutal gore happening, you get a moment right at the very beginning and then you kind of gotta wait about an hour before you get the next big kill. I'll get into what I think didn't work about the film overall, but let's start with talking about the positives. I'm going to try to avoid spoilers for the most part. So the positives of this film, I do feel like there are creepy moments throughout. There are definitely scenes that build good tension where you have characters that are trying to find a way to get out of this situation. You have this rabid monkey that's just sitting patiently and waiting for these humans to make one wrong move so it can go and attack them. I thought the house location was a lot of fun. It's like one of these big luxury mansions in Hawaii, and they have this giant swimming pool, and there are points in the film where you're having the characters that are stuck in the swimming pool and they go there because the monkey can't swim, so that's really the only place in the house that they are safe. But even then, the monkey finds creative ways to go and try to get at them, which is pretty funny. But there are moments where you're watching this monkey, Ben is his name. He is completely in rage mode and they have this fire going and you can just like see his face through the flames and he has blood on him and he just looks crazy, and that felt very menacing. He looked very menacing and creepy in those moments. The biggest surprise for me going into the film was Again, I thought it was going to be more of a horror comedy. Like when I saw the trailer for it, kind of made it look like it was almost going to be a parody of the horror tropes. And there are comedic moments throughout, and I think those moments work as well for the most part. The scene where one of the female characters gets locked in the car and she's trying to get away, and then she discovers that Ben has the keys to the car. Like, that's a very funny scene. There are moments where Ben is killing people and then he's laughing at them or mocking them afterwards. That ended up being both funny as well as menacing. I do think they put all of the funny moments in the trailer, and I don't know if that was a purposeful misdirect on their part where they wanted you to think it was just this goofy monkey movie. And then in reality, it does lean more into wanting to be a genuine horror film with the suspense, the buildup of tension, Ben very much turning into a standard slasher movie villain. And there are a lot of homages throughout the film to various horror classics. There is a lot of love given to John Carpenter in this movie. The music for this film is probably my favorite part of it. And the music that they got is this synth heavy, working with a keyboard type score. There have been a lot of film scores throughout the years that have tried to live up to that John Carpenter sound, that signature sound that he has. But this one I feel like is the closest that I've heard to being an actual John Carpenter or Cody Carpenter score. Sounded so similar. My friend and I that I saw this with, like, we kept looking at each other and being like, did John Carpenter do the music for this? Is that going to be the big surprise at the end? But I loved the music. Like, I really want to get the soundtrack for this film. But yeah, you can see a lot of John Carpenter influence in this film. There are direct homages to films like Halloween, for example. There's one scene in which you have two characters that are hiding in a closet and Ben is like stalking around looking for them, and it is very clearly a tribute to that scene in Halloween when Jamie Lee Curtis is in the closet and Michael Myers is going after her. So I thought moments like that were a lot of fun. Another thing that I liked about this movie is that you have the dad from Coda in it, which I don't remember him being in the trailer, but when he showed up in the film, I was like, oh, I love this guy. That's so cool. Troy Koster, I think his name is. I probably butchered his last name. And that actor is deaf in real life. You'll have moments where we're seeing things through his point of view and all of the sound goes away. And that also leads to some very creepy as well as some humorous moments throughout the film. It's so weird. I feel like this is a film where I can take like individual scenes of it and be like, okay, I thought that worked really well. I thought that was funny. That was cute. As a whole, it ended up feeling kind of hollow and empty. And I think for me, that was just because you have a bunch of lame, nothing burger characters. And this really is my biggest critique of this film, which is the human characters here are not that well fleshed out, and I just didn't care about any of them. Yes, the argument can be made, this is just supposed to be a fun B movie, it's not supposed to be taken that seriously. Like, I get it, just wanted to have a fun slasher film feel with the really annoying human characters who you just want to see get died off in brutal ways. But the movie also wants to have these moments with its characters. It wants to have these very sentimental moments where it feels like when someone close to the protagonist, for example, dies, it feels like the movie wants to have this big emotional moment for the protagonist. However, it didn't spend enough time cultivating that relationship. And there's a lot going on here. You've got the family dynamics, you've got the protagonist and her best friend who is joining her for this weekend that she's visiting her family. You have a love interest for the protagonist. You have the snotty girl who is also coming along on this trip, who is also interested in the love interest and is then a threat to the protagonist, and the protagonist feels insecure about herself. So it has a lot going on there in terms of like character stuff, but we don't really dive that deep into it. For example, with her best friend, we only know that they're best friends because the film tells us that. There's literally a scene at the beginning of the film where they are on the plane to Hawaii, and the friend turns to the protagonist and is like, oh, you have me, I'm your best friend. And then they do a close-up of their friendship necklaces. Usually best friends, they have some kind of quirks with each other. It would have been nice to see that rather than just having the characters being like, I'm your best friend. This is always a nitpick on my part, the exposition dialogue. And again, I know I shouldn't be expecting more from this film. However, I feel like it's these genuine moments that you have with the characters show why it's meaningful to the protagonist. That just elevates your film to a whole other level. Same thing with the protagonist and her sister. You also learn that their mother passed away. The mother who was the one that was working with Ben and teaching him how to talk and how to have these, more human-like qualities. And I thought because they took a moment to have that scene and again explain it through dialogue what happened to the mom, that would come play a role in some way, but it really doesn't, especially with the family dynamic. There are hints here and there that the father's always leaving for work, the protagonist, the older sister is always leaving, the younger sister feels abandoned, and I was like, okay, maybe there's something here where this is a family that just hasn't dealt with the grief of losing their mom, and they've all become very distant from each other. And then I was like, well, maybe it's a thing because Ben was technically the mom's, and so is it a thing where Ben represents the mom to them? Like, he reminds them of the mother, and they're so in their grief that they can't handle it. And I was like, oh, well, maybe they have to keep him in a cage because that's the only way they can deal with the loss of the mom, and Ben getting sick is a representation of their grief that they haven't resolved yet. This is the problem when you go see a film with a film scholar, is that they overanalyze everything. So I think I was reading like way too much into it and maybe expecting too much from the characters and what it was doing. I also just feel like it was almost too many characters. And again, I know they wanted to have that slasher feel, so they had to have all of these people coming in. But I think what works well with something like a Cujo, for example, is that it is very simple mom, son, and you're really getting the psychology of the mother throughout this whole traumatic event. And here, because there are so many characters and there are so many different kinds of relationships going on, there's just not enough time to develop anyone. And I don't even think anyone was that annoying enough where I was like, yeah, I want to see this person get killed. That's how kind of bland they were. I am going to get into spoilers for a few minutes because I want to talk about the ending. So if you don't want to get spoiled, I will leave a timestamp somewhere here. So the ending, you have Ben that gets defeated by the family. The protagonist manages to push him over the ledge, falls down several stories from the house to his death. And we have a moment where the characters are looking over the edge and we're seeing through their point of view, Ben sprawled on his back. And because they were doing so many homages to John Carpenter and Halloween throughout this film, I thought that the end was going to be similar to what we see in Halloween, right? Where Dr. Loomis defeats Michael Myers and then he looks over the edge thinking that Michael's body is going to be there and it's not. I thought we were going to get the same thing here with Primate where they're looking over the ledge and Ben is now nowhere to be found. And then we just hear his creepy breathing or creepy laughter throughout different points in the house as we do with Halloween. And then they don't do it. They do this very, what I felt like to be a super lame ending where the paramedics come and the police come and the sister who has been bitten, they put her away into the ambulance and it's a nice family moment. You do have a moment with the police. They're holding this bit of technology. It's like one of these boards where Ben can push buttons and that helps him to speak. The police are playing with it, but you just hear them off screen. So you just hear that mechanical voice off screen and then the protagonist is looking around and is like, oh my God, he's still alive. And then it just cuts to her staring at them and then it cuts to credits. It felt like such a tame ending for a film that does want to have this very outrageous B-movie kind of feel. I was expecting Ben to come back in some form, or what I was also thinking with the sister character, because the sister gets bit pretty early on in the film. And they do say at the beginning of the film that rabies needs to be treated within the first 2 hours of getting bit. And we see her get bit pretty early on in the film. So I was expecting the whole time at some point that she was going to start changing and start going like crazy rage monster as well. It ended with a whimper instead of a bang. As far as killer monkey movies go, if I'm ever for some reason in the mood to watch a film with a killer monkey, I think my first choice is still probably going to be Shakma, which for anyone unfamiliar is this hilariously stupid B-movie from the late 1980s, I think. If you need a laugh, just go watch the trailer for it on YouTube. Shakma! I do have here, I'm just using it as like decoration, I guess. I Drink Your Blood, which is another rabies film. I guess this one is just infected humans, which is maybe why I like it more than the ones with infected animals in it. I will say with this film, while it wasn't a favorite for me, I do think as far as early January horror movies go, this is one of the better ones that we've gotten in the last couple of years. When I think of the last 2 previous years, the films that have started us off are The Wolfman and Night Swim, 2 blunders from Blumhouse. So at least this movie has that going for it. It's a way better film than either of those two. What did you think of Primate if you saw it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I feel like the next few weeks are packed for horror. Like, we have some pretty big titles coming up with 28 Years Later, the new Silent Hill film, and then I think after that is the new Sam Raimi film, the Send Help, I think it's called. So some pretty heavy hitters coming up in the next few weeks. I am very excited about it. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.